Welcome to the Front Office Exchange, where we take a look at the careers of executives and rising stars within the sports business. Now here's your host, Jake Vailing.
This is episode 15 of the Front Office Exchange podcast, and today we'll hear from David Shoemaker, General Manager of Razorback Sports Properties. David and I, we were both marketing interns for USA Baseball back in 2003, man, in what was both of our first jobs out of school. When USA Baseball, in what was a shocker at the time, failed to qualify for the Athens 2004 Olympic Games, the USOC cut our funding. We all kind of panicked. David Perkins, who you've heard on in a previous episode, he did a great job, helping lead USA Baseball through that process. But there were a lot of changes. My role was diminished from that marketing coordinator role. Some things changed. I ended up moving on to the USGA. And then David was let go altogether. He talked in the podcast about what came next for him. It was an internship with Octagon and how he took what he learned from his USA Baseball experience to become a harder worker, a better networker, and someone who just in general says yes to opportunities. And now he's gone on to lead one of IMG College's leading properties there at Arkansas. We've heard from two members of IMG College already, Jason Wilmoth and Will Baggett. Back in episode 10, they work directly for IMG College, but now we're going to get to hear from someone leading the charge for one of its universities. So without further ado, David Shoemaker of Razorback Sports Properties. David Shoemaker, welcome to the Front Office Exchange. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So, to get you on the phone here, you sent me a picture. So this was, moving mountains to get a landline. I appreciate you you jumping over the hurdles to make this happen.
I'm, and it makes it sound like I'm really advanced, but the other option you offered me was Skype, and I'm actually the least technologically proficient 35-year-old nurse. So I was like, yeah, I don't know how to do Skype. So
you've never done Skype.
Yeah, so we brought the landline back. We got the landline installed. This is the first call on it. I'm hoping it works, but I'm excited for the landline.
I feel like I have to post a picture of this phone. It was the saddest, loneliest looking landline I've ever seen.
This is what they had. Is Nortel. Does Nortel still exist? It says Nortel on it.
I have no idea at this point. But regardless, I appreciate you making it happen. As I said in the outset, you and I go all the way back, I think, respectively, to both of our first jobs, our first real jobs when USA Baseball was trying to figure it out back in the Triangle.
Yeah, absolutely. Straight out of college, 2003, I guess. We were, and I think they're up to like 100 people at USA Baseball, or 30 or 50 or something. We were like number 8 and 9, I think, when we were there.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I had David Perkins on one of the earlier episodes, and that's what he says. He says all he does now, it's all focused on talent and building the roster there. And you and I just remember packing up a U-Haul to help them move offices into the Durham Bulls Park, and it was literally just the two of us, in addition to the handful of full-time people. So it's unbelievable to see how far they've come.
Yeah, no, it was. It's. I guess some days it seems like it's not that long ago, and some days it seems like it was a really long time ago. But yeah, that's where we got our start.
Yeah, and then for you now, GM of Razorback Sports Properties, and there's a lot to talk about in between, but let's start there. So, I know you took on that role a couple years ago. So why don't you give us just kind of an update on what you're doing there at Arkansas? It's tied into IMG. We've had a couple people on from IMG on earlier episodes as well. So if you could talk about what you do, how that relationship works, both from the IMG perspective, but then how you're kind of intertwined there at Arkansas as well.
Yeah, I'm here at Arkansas with the Razorback Sports Properties. We've got an 8-person staff here that is our IMG employees working on campus at the University of Arkansas in the athletic department alongside their staff. The marketing folks are right across the hall. And so, we work with them as their rights holder. I think IMG has been the rights holder here since 2008. To basically maximize their corporate sponsorship opportunities. We run the radio network. We run, the advertising on the website, signage in the stadiums, all those things. And then the biggest thing, obviously, now I think is intellectual property and people, the official chip or the official truck of the Razorbacks, and people wanting to align their brands alongside the Razorbacks. So we've got a team here that works hand in hand with the athletic department. We really view ourselves as part of the athletic department in every way. But at the end of the day, we're IMG employees. They're here intertwined with them.
So obviously Arkansas is one of the premier properties in terms of college sports in the country. How has that move for you to Arkansas been? I guess this is twofold. One, what's it been like building your team there? And then I know that you were in the area prior to taking on that role. We can work backwards to Octagon as well. So what's it been like building your team and just in general living in Fayetteville?
Yeah, this is a very special place. And not to jump around too much, but I was working for Octagon in North Carolina, and I got the opportunity to come with Octagon out to Arkansas, and I couldn't have told you anything about it other than the professional opportunity that I got was great, and so I jumped at it. And I've been out here. We moved out here 8 years ago now, and I've been here with IMG the last 3.5 years in this role, working with the Razorbacks. And the really cool thing about the Arkansas Razorbacks is, the Razorback is the state flag for Arkansas in a lot of ways. There aren't any other professional teams. There aren't any other major Power 5 schools in collegiate athletics. And so there's an affinity for the Razorback, for our teams, and for that brand that travels the entire state. You and I grew up in North Carolina, and you'd walk into a restaurant and somebody might be a Carolina fan or a State fan. If they were from out of town, they might be a Duke fan. But, there was Clemson and there was Wake Forest and there were teams everywhere. And so it was a little bit of a culture shock for me coming here and realizing, hey, everybody rallies around the same team. So it's really unique. It's really cool. And then from the corporate side of things, what we're doing, reaching out to corporations, you've got Walmart here, the largest company in the world. You've got Tyson headquartered here. You've got J.B. Hunt. All of those have their headquarters within 20 minutes of where we sit here on campus. And then with Walmart, you've got the added, there's a massive office here for P&G and for General Mills and for, Kimberly-Clark, Johnson & Johnson, all these major companies that have huge presence here. Really makes it a unique place, unlike anywhere else that I've been.
So you took the opportunity with Octagon to get there, but what's it like recruiting there? As you've built your team, we talked a little bit before we started recording. Arkansas, like we said, is big brand, SEC, a lot of visibility. But to your point, Fayetteville is a little bit of an unknown. So as you've built that team, are you finding people out of state? What are those recruiting hooks that you put out there to help build out your team there at IMG? Yeah,
part of, I guess, the counterpoint to what I just said about it being the only sports franchise, the only no other pro teams is it's not like you're in a big pro city and you take somebody from the football team and recruit them to the baseball team. So it's been interesting. You've really got to have people that get this place, that have an affinity. And so for some of the entry-level positions, it's a little easier. You get somebody who's completed an internship at another school or another sports franchise, or and obviously, as you know, we all have friends in the industry that can pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got this intern. I don't have a position for them. I know you have an opening. They'd be great for it. And that's the currency that we all trade on, is if someone that I trust tells me that this person's good, then they're going to the top of the list. So those positions are a little easier. When you're trying to find, we're in sponsorship sales, so most of the spots on our team are for salespeople, and it can be hard to find someone that has experience selling corporate sponsorships to come to Arkansas. So we're very fortunate in that we've got a couple of guys that have been here for a long time that are some of the best in the business that have been on this team since the beginning. And we've added a few folks since I've been here where we've gotten creative. We've got 2 people on our staff right now who were formerly nonprofit fundraisers and have adapted to, okay, they knew the area, they knew the landscape and the people here, and came in here and learned on the job, learned collegiate athletics and sponsorship sales, learned that component of it, and have been great additions to our team.
So you're leveraging transferable skills a lot of times.
Yeah, I think anytime you're hiring someone that you look at and you say, okay, here are all the things that I think I would love to have in this position, and then you look at the candidates you have and you see how many of those you can fill, and the spots that they don't have, you say, okay, can they learn that? Can I teach them that? And you prioritize. And so sometimes it's, hey, this person gets it. In general, they seem like the right type of person. They seem like the right type of fit. They seem like the right type of worker. These other things that they may not have, I think we can teach them. And
right.
And that's important in developing any team. And you look at the other members on your team and say, hey, I can't really teach them this, but this other person on our team can teach them this. And so I think we've done a lot of that and done a good job of that out here.
Sure. Now, I know this sports properties model, this IMG model exists in many different universities, but can you give an idea of how it breaks out? Again, before we were recording, you said it sounds like a relatively flat organization. So as the general manager, you're overseeing a team of how many? And those are all primarily salespeople. Are they working specifically with sports, some with partners? How does it operate?
Yeah, we've got an 8-person staff that includes me. We've got 2 partner services coordinators who are essentially the people making sure that everything that we promise our clients they're going to get, that they actually get those things. And then we've got 5 account executives, salespeople that are working directly with clients. So they're managing the Mars account, the Ford account, all of our different partners, and they've each got their own book of business that they're managing and that they're working to grow and working to provide value to those partners. And then they're working back in conjunction with those partner services coordinators to say, okay, basketball season's coming up. We got to get all the basketball radio spots in, all the basketball LED in. How can we make these things all happen? How can we problem solve? And then we've got a team, with the IMG model, we've got a team of people in Atlanta, a team of people in New York working on national sales, a team of people in Winston-Salem that are resources for us and are helping us provide all the things that we need to provide for our clients. So we've kind of got 8 people that sometimes we feel like we're out here on an island, but we've got all those resources and all of those other offices that all of our collegiate properties are working back to.
Now, how's Fayetteville been for you personally? You mentioned you're a North Carolina guy. You and I both came out of a basketball school. You've now been in Arkansas for more than the 3 years you've been at IMG. But you talk about your family. I know you're having some kids. So what's it been like personally for you there in the state?
Yeah, it's been great. My wife and I moved out here 8 years ago. I now have a 6-year-old boy, Wyatt, and a 2-year-old daughter, Maddie, who are native Arkansans. And,
wow, yeah,
born here, and this is all that they know. And so there are a lot of similarities from growing up in North Carolina that you feel like you basically move straight west, and so the latitude's about the same. And so there are just a lot of similarities, I think, in terms of way of life. But I think that Fayetteville, it's just a cool place. It's a unique town up here in Northwest Arkansas. And then, in this role, more so than in my role with Octagon, I've got to spend a lot of time in the central part of the state near Little Rock. And it's a small state. There's 3 million people in the state of Arkansas. But there's a lot going on. I mentioned the businesses earlier that are operating here. So it feels like a small pond with a lot of big fish in it sometimes, and it's just a unique, really cool place to be a part of.
Awesome. So let's go all the way back. So USA Baseball to start your career, and then you left USA Baseball. Walk through, if you can, for me, what your mindset was at the time. Did you want to stay in sports? Did you want to, is what you liked about USA Baseball the events? Experience that you gained and you wanted to stay on that track. But then from there, what was that next step for you? And then obviously we can work through to Octagon and then IMG.
Yeah, so I was at USA Baseball, and it all runs together now. But I think you and I started there about the same time. I think I was there less than a year, and as you'll recall, we lost an Olympic qualifier to Mexico, which meant that the U.S. was not going to be represented in the next Olympics. And to my recollection, which may be incorrect, it meant that our budget went from something like $2 million a year to $1 million a year because the Olympic Committee funding was not going to be there. And I was making approximately $1 million a year. So
yeah, so you lost it all. Yeah, that's a shame.
As we both were. So that was pretty much the whole budget.
Yeah, the overhead was incredible.
In all seriousness, you get to a spot like that as an organization,
right.
You got to say, okay, what can we cut? And I was one of those things. And so it was actually a great experience to get very early in my career to be kind of in this entry level. I don't know what we called it. We weren't quite full-time, but we weren't.
Yeah, I think we were coordinators. Yeah, and then I left right after you. I mean, it was the same thing. Now looking back, to have two marketing coordinators reporting into a head of marketing, now realizing the model that USA Baseball has in the triangle and what their focus is more broad now with, getting more youth to play baseball and events and things like that. So, I think it was a good learning experience for all of us involved, but I left about the same time as well.
Yeah. And so it was, but I remember kind of stepping back at that point and going, okay, what do I want to do next? I did love being in sports. I loved, you mentioned the event experience. So went down and ran the Junior Olympics in Florida, where it was like 144 teams. And I remember doing the math and being like, okay, we've got 600 kids or whatever it is, or 1,200 kids, which means we have 2,400 parents who all think that their kid's going to make this national team.
Right.
And so you dealt with that, and you dealt with a rain delay, meaning that you need to reschedule games that were running all day on 14 different fields. And it was like we talked about, it was a bare bones staff.
Massive
so it was basically
operation.
myself
and
a lot of volunteers down there doing all of this. And it was, there were some nights I slept on T-shirts in the Cardinals clubhouse at their spring training facility down there in Jupiter. But I really loved that experience. And so when I took a step back, and it's funny, you lose a job where you're not really making a lot of money and you're straight out of school and you have no responsibilities. But when you're in that situation, you never look at it like that. I remember I had a $500 a month rent and a $50 a month payment on a Ford Taurus. And I was like, hey, I got to get a job. I'm going to be on the street.
That was a great car, though.
It was a great car. So anyway, I took a step back and I evaluated a lot of things, and I had a journalism degree. So I looked at, do I want to get back into that? I'd done an internship at a TV station previously. I looked at, when you're in that position that most of us who work in sports are, that you get out of school and you start finding some unpaid or not very highly paid internship, but your buddy goes to, work at Enterprise Rent-A-Car and makes what you think is a ton of money at the time.
Right.
And so you're like, maybe I'm going down the wrong path here. So I remember talking to somebody at, Hertz Equipment Rental, and that looked like all the money in the world at the time and an opportunity that was in front of me. And then I got a job offer that would have still been in sports there locally, but at the same time, friend of ours, Jeff Singer, went to a Chamber of Commerce event, I think, and sat next to some people from Octagon. And as they were at one of those big rubber chicken Chamber of Commerce events, and there were 10 seats at the table, but only 6 people. So Jeff, as the story went, ate all the salads at all of the empty spots on the table, and came back with a business card and said, hey, here, you should call this guy. He's with Octagon. And so I remember sending an email to Paul Campion and saying, dear Mr. Campion, my roommate met you at this event. He was the guy who ate all of the salads. But I'd love to come talk to you about any openings that you may have. And the
this
rest
is
of history,
unbelievable.
I ended up at Octagon in what they called a limited term role.
Sure.
Which basically meant, with all of these other opportunities that I was evaluating, really probably the best decision that I've ever made career-wise was, I said, you know what, this is where I think I want to be. It was a big company. It was a for-profit company. And one of the things I remember evaluating after the USA Baseball experience was, you got to be somewhere where you can prove your value. And in a for-profit company, even if you're not in revenue generation, that's the bottom line, and so you're going to be proving that you're helping the overall mission, and that you're contributing to that in one way or another. And so I really knew that was where I wanted to be, so I took kind of the thing with the least short-term potential, in that I took a job that I think was supposed to last from March to September. It was basically an internship with a stipend and no benefits, versus taking some of the other full-time opportunities that I was looking at. And about maybe 4 to 6 weeks in, somebody left and a job opened up. And I remember going to Jeff Kleiber, who was my boss's boss at the time, and saying, hey, I know I just got here and you don't know me, but I really think I could be a fit for this and would love to be considered for it. And he was very non-committal in his way, probably said, okay. And, we had an event coming up. We had a nationwide tour event in Raleigh, and I just put my nose down and worked as hard as I could possibly work for as long as I possibly could. And 2 months into the internship, I had a full-time job, and so that led to, I think, that led to some good years at Octagon.
Well, I'm not going to let you off the hook that fast. So some good years at Octagon. Now, what did that mean? So did you stay in the Raleigh-Durham area for a few years working on various events? At what point was there you're going to get promoted? It's just like any other industry, any other functional area. Sometimes moving, whether it's overseas or something like that, that's what it takes to advance you in your career. So, what was that timeline like? What was that decision like for you? And at that point, your young family.
So the job that I was given there was basically an operations coordinator position at Octagon, where I was working on the nationwide tour event in Raleigh, the Champions Tour event in Cary, and then a Champions Tour event in Naples, Florida. So it was great. I would spend 9 months of the year in North Carolina and 3 months in Florida from December to February. And so it was. I became a 90-year-old snowbird at that point. After 3 winters of that, I couldn't do winter anymore.
Right.
But it was an incredible experience getting to travel, work at golf tournaments. Octagon also had tournaments in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and in New York, and so we'd travel and go help out with those. But I was primarily focused on those 3 events. And then I met another VP in the division, Andy Bush, and worked on an event together in Texas. And Octagon had just picked up an LPGA golf tournament in Rogers, Arkansas. And so I think I had been with the company in that operations capacity for 3 years, 3.5 years, something like that, and got the opportunity to move to Arkansas and become a tournament director, which meant I was moving beyond operations into sales and marketing and media, and overseeing those other areas that went into running a professional golf tournament. So it was a huge career opportunity to me. So kind of like I said earlier, we packed up and came.
So at this point, you're 26, 27, and you are married.
I was, yeah.
Okay.
That's how we did it in those days.
So when you said how we did it, instead of like horse-drawn carriage, okay.
Yeah, back in our day, right after senior prom, you got married.
Yep, this is the Oregon Trail, right.
So Christine and I had been married probably 2 years.
Okay.
When we headed out here.
So you said, babe, LPGA event, Rogers, Arkansas. And she was thrilled.
She was thrilled, yeah. It's interesting looking back. You never evaluate these things as you're going through them. But as I recall, she was having a very successful career of her own.
No, I remember that.
That was probably far more lucrative than mine.
Let's be honest, right?
But she never wavered. I think I wavered. I think I said, hey, what if, because I felt like I was pretty good at what I was doing in operations. But I had no idea if I could do sales or any of those other aspects that went into being a tournament director. And it was a new tournament, which with a new tournament, you don't know if the tournament's going to be around 30 years or 3 months. You've got to go out there and prove that you can make them financially viable. So there was a little bit of unknown of, okay, what if we go out here and I do a terrible job or I do a great job, and it doesn't work out. And so the folks at Octagon were great. They were like, listen, this is going to be successful. If not, we'll figure something else out. But yeah, Christina was very supportive in that, hey, let's go. This is going to be successful. And she was excited and pushed me towards it. So that was huge.
Very cool. Now the transition to IMG. So were you recruited by them? Octagon, at this point, you'd been with them almost 10 years. It sounds like a great family, and you'd built a great relationship there. The tournament became successful. What was that transition to IMG like? I mean, obviously it's a great opportunity that you've got there at Arkansas.
Yeah, I think, I'd been with Octagon at that point. When I came over, I think I ended up probably 8.5 years, something like that, at Octagon. And so, as I mentioned, Arkansas is kind of a small place, and Ryan Gribble was the general manager for IMG here at the time, and we had gotten to know each other basically just from being two guys in town who were working in the sports industry. I was at Octagon 20 minutes up the street in Rogers, and he was with IMG down here on campus. And so I'd gotten to know him a little bit, and I heard that he was making a move within IMG to Georgia. And I remember calling and leaving a voicemail where I said, hey, heard about the move, congrats, let's catch lunch before you leave town. And at the end of the voicemail, I kind of just made a comment like, and throw my name in there. And I got a text back from him maybe 2 days later that said something like, "You want a shot at the title?" And I'd also had the opportunity to meet Jeff Long and meet a few different people in the athletic department during my time working on the golf tournament, and really was plenty happy at Octagon. But then this opportunity opened up, and kind of didn't know if I was interested, and threw it out there. And then as that started to become more real, college athletics is a funny thing. We talked about you're an IMG employee, but you're part of the university. And so it's not like working at a pro team where the owner of the team says, hey, yeah, I'm good with this sponsorship, let's go do it. There's a lot of stakeholders, and you've got an AD that has to be comfortable with what you're doing, and a chancellor that has to be comfortable with what you're doing. So all of that to say, the interview process for this job, I think I met with 13 different people between IMG and the University of Arkansas, mostly one-on-one, 13 different interviews to get to the point where I ended up here.
Wow. And then, so is that common within IMG? I know you said the former GM went for another opportunity. Do you see that a lot within IMG and the various properties?
Yeah, I think it's a company that offers you that. You've got various properties at various sizes, and so someone, can gain experience at one property and then move up to another, or move on, or move, as you know, in this industry, you go where the job is, you go where the opportunity is. And so maybe you go chase an opportunity across the country and then decide that you need to get back closer to family, and an opportunity opens up closer to home. And so, it's one of the advantages of a company of this size with people on the ground in so many places that offers that opportunity for movement within.
What's next for you? What's coming up for IMG, Razorback Sports Properties, and then the university as well? What's your next project? What are you excited about working on?
The big thing we've got in front of us on the horizon is a new stadium renovation to our football stadium. Right at the end of this season that we're in, as soon as our last home game is over against LSU, they're going to demolish the Frank Broyles Center that's been kind of the home to administrative offices for athletics and football locker room and all of that, and then over the course of the next 2 years, extend the concourse to connect the entire stadium, build some luxury suites and some loge boxes and other things in there, and then renovate all of the club areas and the existing suite areas in the stadium over the course of the next 2 years. So I think that's exciting for our fans and going to create a lot of opportunity for us to create inventory. New video board on the south side of the stadium that side will look down at. So it'll be a great opportunity for us to work with the athletic department. We've got a very cooperative relationship there where we get to go out and figure out, hey, what's something new? What's a new feature? What's a new thing we can do on the video board? What's something new we can do on social media that, a sponsor could bring value to? We just got a new video board in baseball last season that I believe is the biggest video board in college baseball. We got a new center-hung video board in basketball that may be the biggest center-hung video board in college basketball. And so it's been great working with athletics to try to come up with new ideas, new things to do on that we may have been limited in the past on how to do. So it's an opportunity for us to get creative and hopefully find a way to bring in new revenue for athletics and bring in some extra value for our partners.
Now, hearing all these exciting things that are going on, and I understand that you're limited in respect to the university that you're associated with, but I wonder, is there any competition among the various sports properties, programs, almost as if there's like a like Teambo for the NBA, where there's best practices, a resource for you all to go to. Just do you look at any other properties and say these guys are really doing it right, or I like what these guys are doing? I'm just curious if there's any of that internal competition.
Yeah, I don't know that if they're supposed to be, but certainly that's the way that we're all wired. So when we get together for a GM meeting, we met in Atlanta a few months ago now with all of the GMs from the Southeast region. We met as a company back in February with everyone from IMG College. We have a conference call every other week with all of the GMs in our region where we share best practices, talk about things we're doing. Could be anything across the business. Could be employee recognition or new sponsorship idea, whatever that could be. But we're all wired to talk a little smack and to try to one-up one another and raise the bar whenever we can. So it's a great network and kind of opportunity to be around our peers and to talk and to pick up the phone. We get the opportunity here to travel with our team a lot. So every week I'm going to another school, to another stadium, and walking around and trying to steal every idea I can find, and then calling that general manager the next week and say, hey, I saw this sponsorship that you have. Tell me about it. How'd you come up with that? How's it working?
Interesting.
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah. So in wrapping this up, if I'm hearing you, you looked at adversity early on in your career, and you use that as motivation. You went in, you put your head down, you got a full-time job out of an internship pretty quickly, and then just said yes, to the opportunity there in Arkansas. Are those, one, correct me if I'm wrong, but two, are those the things that you like to impart on those people that you hire, those people that maybe you run into, and at the GM meetings that you just referred to? What's some advice that you like to pass along, and on the other side, maybe some of the best advice that you've been given?
Some of the best advice that I've been given. Andy Bush, who was my boss at Octagon for a while, told me, early in my career, just find a way to say yes. I'd run around at a golf tournament and run myself ragged, figuring out 40 ways to tell people no without being a jerk if they asked for something that I couldn't do. And so you get that a lot in this business in sports. People are asking for something all the time, whether it's tickets or an experience or the golf tournament. Can I borrow your golf cart and drive it out to the parking lot? And what I realized was you don't have to just say yes and be if it's something you can't do, but how do you find a way to help that person? How do you say, no, you can't drive my golf cart to the parking lot, but hop on, I'll take you to the gate over here. It's only 2 minutes out of my way. No, I don't have any tickets for this sold out game this week, but here I can put you in touch with somebody who might, or I can find you tickets to something else, or I can help, try to help people in whatever way you can. And I remember it being a great stress reducer to find a way to say yes, find a way to help people. As far as advice that I would pass on to other people, I have kind of a reputation for being somewhat evangelical about 401ks. So new people that get hired, I've been known to sit at their desk and make them log in, and then I lecture them on the fact that they don't have any real bills or responsibilities and they need to contribute more into their 401k, because I think that that's something that, you want people to not wait 10 years into their career to realize that that's probably a good idea to be contributing into. So it's a little outside the actual business.
I was going to say, I was not expecting that answer, but I'm really impressed, Papa Shoe. I like it.
Hey, I'm the picture of responsibility over here.
No kidding.
As far as mistakes you see people making, the buzzword that kills me sometimes, and we've probably said it 5 times in this interview, is networking. But I almost hate the way that I see people going about it sometimes, which is like they're collecting people. Like, I need to meet this person for my network.
Right.
I think over the course of your career, you get the opportunity to work with a lot of different people. You come across a lot of different people on a project in various capacities, and you just try to work with people and treat people the right way and do a good job and make a strong impression. And then you look back one day and you say, I've got a pretty substantial network.
Sure.
I think sometimes people can be almost too intentional, and I want people to realize how important it is, and realize that the value in it. But you can almost be too intentional in setting about doing it, and I don't know that there's a lot of value to that.
Yeah, and then you end up at the end of the conversation, the person saying, well, how can I help you? And then you're sitting there stuck, and I've been guilty of this in the past too. And then you say, well, I just wanted to meet you. And yes, like you said, there is some value to it, but at the end of the day, that person's going to want a mutually beneficial relationship in many cases as well.
Yeah, or the other side of that is that you know exactly how that person can help you, but that person
Right.
doesn't have any incentive to want to help you yet.
Right.
They don't know you.
Right.
So I think people need to just be authentic in your relationships is the main thing. Is you're not sitting around building your collection of people. We don't keep Rolodex anymore, so you don't have to worry about how many cards you can put in it.
You don't wait. You don't.
No, you know what? I'm actually looking at one that I'm about to throw out.
It's next to your landline. It's right next to your landline.
It's right next to my landline. So no, I think that's important. I think I try to get people to focus on. I think, and not to be the old guy sitting here talking about young kids today, but people get very focused on what the next steps are in their career. And I'm fortunate. I feel like I've been in a career where I've always been focused on what I'm doing right now, and that the next step will present itself if you do what you're doing right now the right way. And so, you've got to be competent at what you're doing before you're going to get the next step. So don't get into a job and be over-focused on, hey, where am I going to be in 2 years? Well, let's figure out if you're any good at this before you know where you're going to be in 2 years, because that will dictate where you're going to be in 2 years.
Yeah.
And so you really have to coach people to say, hey, take an opportunity for that opportunity. Yes, you should look at what could happen down the road and what it could lead to, and know if you feel like it's a dead end or not. But I've been in interviews with someone where they're asking me on the first interview about the next job, and I'm thinking, man, I need somebody for this job.
Yeah.
I'm not just trying to hire you to further your career. I've got a responsibility.
Yeah, you got to build the bench
that
a little bit too.
To own for me here.
Sure. Interesting. Who is in? Well, first, you mentioned a few people over the course of this podcast. Do you have any mentors currently, or were those gentlemen that you mentioned at Octagon? I mean, would you point to them as a couple people that have really helped you along the way?
Yeah, I think it's important in your career, and this, could probably fall under the last question with advice to young people, but you want to look at who you're going to work for. And to whatever extent you can look at that person, you're entrusting them with your career to an extent.
Right.
And I've been fortunate. I had 3 bosses at Octagon, Jeff Kleiber, Jason Camp, and Andy Bush, and then 2 here at IMG, and Scott McKenzie and Tracy White, that I've always felt like I had a good boss, and that I had somebody that I could pick up the phone and I could learn a lot from, and I could bounce a question off of, or say, hey, I got a situation here I'm not real sure how to handle. And that's huge. And then as you develop your own staff, you hope that you're that person for your staff, because it is a big responsibility.
Who is in David Shoemaker's ideal foursome? I mean, you worked in golf, You've worked in sports your whole career. If you've got to pick 3 people to go out and play with, they could be colleagues, again, mentors, athletes, family, anybody. Give me some good ones, and you can't use Michael Jordan. I mean,
can't say Michael Jordan.
No, all these Carolina guys are saying Jordan. This is getting boring. Come on. So you got to give me 3 strong golfing choices here.
Wow, that's a strong one.
Yeah.
Man, I'm not prepared for this question, and I'm going to overthink it.
Do you like to play?
Far too much time.
You like to play?
What's that?
You play, right?
Yeah, I played. You know, it's funny. I played a lot at Octagon when I was working in golf.
Right.
And now I play far less often and far better when I do play.
Wow.
It's interesting. So, yeah, I love the game, love to play. Working in golf made me a golf course snob by having great opportunities to play at courses that I could never otherwise afford to play or even be invited to.
Well, let's switch it around along those lines. If you can't think of a foursome for me, what's your, people, they work in sports, people get jaded. You go to all these events, you meet a lot of cool people, athletes, all the above. But is there still one event that still gets you going when you walk into a stadium or watch on TV, anything that just an event you love to go to or a sports experience that you've appreciated?
Yeah, I think I still get excited about that. I get excited for SEC football. I get to go to that every week in the fall, and it's a big deal. It's a big stadium, and it's top notch every week. And so I love SEC football games. You would think that I'm playing or coaching or contributing to the game in some way because I get up early and I'm nervous all day, and then I'm angry for 2 days if we lose, or I'm on top of the world for 2 days if we win. So SEC football, the bigger the venue, the bigger the game, the bigger the opponent, gets me excited. I had the opportunity to go to the Final Four this past year for the first time, and that was really cool. I think the one that I haven't done that's on my radar is the World Cup. Although I don't plan on going to Russia or Qatar, but
no.
maybe farther down the road. Would love to go to World Cup.
Fayetteville's the Qatar of the Southeast. No, was that another city? Did I get that?
That didn't sound like a compliment, so I'm gonna.
Qatar's amazing. Are you kidding me? Come on. Maybe I should say it the other way around. It's the Fayetteville. Oh, never mind. Well, hey man, I appreciate you coming on. It's been awesome to watch you continue your rise in sports. I mean, you and I were in the same boat. You talked about it. I mean, we were both making no money, but having a blast. And then we've obviously had our different paths through sports, and now you're doing great stuff there at Arkansas. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I look forward to continuing to watch you do some exciting things there.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate you having me. Good to catch up.
Thanks for listening to the Front Office Exchange, where you hear about the careers of some of the leading executives in sports business. Visit us at frontofficeexchange.com, on Facebook at Front Office Exchange, and on Twitter at Front Office EXCH to access past episodes, show notes, and much, much more.